The 2024 presidential election looms large. Americans face a pivotal decision. Will Donald Trump return to the White House? The possibility has ignited intense debate. Supporters praise his economic policies and strong leadership. Critics denounce his rhetoric and challenge his commitment to democratic norms. The stakes are undeniably high. Domestically, the nation grapples with inflation, social unrest, and political polarization. On the global stage, the Russia-Ukraine war continues to cast a long shadow. The outcome of the election will have profound consequences, shaping America's trajectory for years to come. Trump's potential return raises critical questions. Can he unite a deeply divided nation? Will his foreign policy experience translate into effective diplomacy? How will his approach to issues like climate change and immigration impact the country's future? As we navigate this uncertain terrain, one thing is clear: the American people face a momentous decision. Their choice will determine not only the next 4 years, but also the direction of the country for generations to come. The Russia-Ukraine war presents a significant foreign policy challenge. The conflict has resulted in immense suffering and geopolitical instability. Could a Trump presidency bring an end to the bloodshed? Trump's supporters often point to his past dealings with Vladimir Putin. They argue his unconventional approach could yield results where traditional diplomacy has failed. Trump has repeatedly claimed he could broker a peace deal. He boasts of his ability to negotiate with world leaders. However, critics question his understanding of the conflict's complexities. They point to his past praise of Putin as a sign of weakness. Trump's potential strategy remains unclear. Would he pressure Ukraine to cede territory? Would he lift sanctions on Russia? His past statements offer conflicting clues. What is certain is that the conflict demands careful consideration and a nuanced approach. The international community watches closely. The outcome of the U.S. election could have a direct impact on the war's trajectory. The stakes are high, and the potential consequences of any action are far-reaching. Trump's foreign policy during his first term was marked by unpredictability. He withdrew the U.S. from international agreements like the Paris Climate Accord and the Iran nuclear deal. He engaged in trade wars with China and other allies. His approach was often described as America first, prioritizing U.S. interests above all else. While some praised Trump's willingness to challenge the status quo, others criticized his isolationist tendencies. They argued that his actions damaged America's global standing and alienated key allies. His relationship with NATO was particularly strained. Trump repeatedly questioned the alliance's relevance and pressured member states to increase their defense spending. Trump's approach to North Korea was perhaps his most unconventional foreign policy endeavor. He engaged in a series of summits with Kim Jong-un, aiming to denuclearize the Korean peninsula. While the talks initially raised hopes for a diplomatic breakthrough, they ultimately failed to produce any concrete results. As the 2024 election approaches, Trump's foreign policy record will undoubtedly be scrutinized. Voters will need to decide whether his approach made America safer or more vulnerable on the world stage. Trump has consistently advocated for a strong military. During his first term, he oversaw a significant increase in defense spending. He argued that America needed to rebuild its military might to counter threats from China and Russia. Supporters see his commitment to the armed forces as a sign of strength. Critics question how effectively the increased spending was used. They argue for strategic investments in emerging technologies and a comprehensive defense approach. As the 2024 election approaches, voters will consider Trump's record on military spending. AI and technology. Trump's vision for the future. AI development presents opportunities and challenges for the U.S. Trump's approach lacked a clear strategy. Critics argue deregulation hindered responsible AI guidelines. The U.S. must compete with China in AI. Trump's stance on innovation has been mixed. Trade policies and immigration restrictions may hinder innovation. The next president must prioritize a comprehensive AI strategy. Section 6. Space exploration, Trump's cosmic ambitions. Space exploration captured Trump's imagination during his presidency. He championed the creation of the Space Force as a new branch of the military. Trump also set ambitious goals for NASA, including returning astronauts to the moon and eventually sending humans to Mars. Supporters praised his renewed focus on space exploration, arguing that it would spur scientific innovation and bolster American leadership on the final frontier. The private sector, particularly companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin, have made significant strides in recent years, and Trump's supporters believe that continued government investment is crucial to maintaining this momentum. However, critics question the cost of these ambitious space endeavors, particularly in light of pressing domestic issues. They argue that funding should be prioritized for more immediate concerns, such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure. The future of American space exploration hangs in the balance. The 2024 election will likely determine whether the U.S. continues on its current trajectory or shifts its focus elsewhere. Trump and the economy boom or bust. Trump's economic record is a subject of intense debate. Supporters point to the pre-pandemic economy as evidence of his success. They highlight low unemployment rates and stock market highs. Critics argue the benefits favored the wealthy and corporations. They point to rising national debt and the wealth gap. The COVID-19 pandemic severely impacted the global economy. Voters must weigh the potential economic consequences of a Trump presidency. Section 8. Immigration and border security. Trump's stance. Immigration was a defining issue of Trump's presidency. He campaigned on a promise to build a wall along the US-Mexico border and implemented a series of controversial policies aimed at restricting both legal and illegal immigration. Trump's signature immigration policy was the zero-tolerance approach to border enforcement, which resulted in the separation of thousands of migrant children from their parents. The policy sparked widespread outrage and was eventually reversed. The Trump administration also implemented a travel ban on citizens from several Muslim-majority countries, citing national security concerns. The ban was challenged in court and eventually upheld by the Supreme Court. Trump's supporters praise his tough stance on immigration, arguing that it is necessary to protect American jobs and security. However, critics argue that his policies are cruel and inhumane, and that they undermine America's values as a nation of immigrants. The 2024 election will likely reignite the debate over immigration. Voters will need to decide whether they support Trump's approach or believe that a more compassionate and comprehensive approach is needed. Section 9. Healthcare in America, Trump's plans and promises. Trump campaigned to repeal and replace Obamacare. His administration made changes, but full repeal was unsuccessful. Supporters argue it was necessary for affordable options. Critics say it undermined coverage and increased costs. Healthcare will be a central issue in the 2024 election. Section 10. Climate change. Trump's environmental policies. Climate change is one of the most pressing challenges facing the world today. Trump's stance on climate change has been dismissive, with him repeatedly calling it a hoax and rolling back environmental regulations implemented by the Obama administration. One of Trump's most consequential actions was withdrawing the United States from the Paris Agreement, an international accord aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions. He argued that the agreement was unfair to American workers and businesses, and that it would harm the U.S. economy. Trump's environmental policies were met with widespread criticism from scientists, environmental groups, and many world leaders. They argue that his actions will have devastating consequences for the planet, and that the U.S. has a moral obligation to address climate change. The 2024 election will be crucial in determining the future of U.S. climate policy. Voters will need to decide whether they support Trump's approach or believe that a more proactive and science-based approach is necessary to address this global crisis. Section 11. Trump's legacy. What's at stake for America? As America contemplates the possibility of a second Trump presidency, the stakes could not be higher. His potential return to the White House raises fundamental questions about the country's future direction. Trump's legacy is complex and contested. His supporters view him as a transformative figure who challenged the status quo and put America first. They applaud his economic policies, his appointment of conservative judges, and his tough stance on immigration. However, critics argue that Trump's presidency was deeply damaging to American democracy. They point to his rhetoric that fueled division and his attempts to undermine the legitimacy of the electoral process. They also express concern about his foreign policy, his environmental record, and his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. The 2024 election will be a referendum not only on Trump, but also on the values and principles that define America. Voters will decide whether to embrace Trump's vision for the country or to chart a different course. The outcome will have profound consequences for generations to come.